I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this. Honestly, I used to read posts on Reddit about people discovering affairs and think, that's so crazy. It could never happen to me. But here I am, sitting in my apartment, typing this out at 3 a.m. because sleep doesn't come easily anymore. I've been married to my husband Dylan for a little over 4 years. We were together for 6 before that. By all appearances, we were one of those happy couples. Friends would tell me they looked up to us, that they wanted a relationship like ours. We traveled, we laughed, we had inside jokes that only we understood. He held my hand in public, kissed me on the forehead every morning before leaving for work. From the outside, it looked perfect. But there's always the stuff you don't see. The small cracks that don't seem important until they turn into something bigger. For us, that crack started with Dylan's sudden obsession with nightlife. He had never been much of a party guy. Back in college, I was the social one, dragging him to parties, introducing him to people. But sometime last year, almost out of nowhere, he started suggesting nights out at clubs with his coworkers. At first, I didn't mind. I thought it was good for him to have fun, to blow off steam after long weeks at his corporate job. He told me it was all networking, and I believed him. He'd come home around 2 or 3 a.m., smelling like alcohol and cologne, sometimes a little more touchy than usual, sometimes strangely distant. But I brushed it off because, well, I trusted him. He was my husband. One night in particular, though, everything changed. It was a Friday. I had plans with a friend that got canceled last minute, so I found myself home alone. Dylan texted around 7 p.m. saying he was grabbing drinks with the guys from work and that it might run late. I didn't think much of it, but something in me, call it intuition, felt restless. I tried watching Netflix, scrolling TikTok, anything to distract myself, but I kept glancing at my phone, waiting for his texts. Around midnight, I decided to surprise him. I told myself it would be cute showing up at the club he mentioned before, having a drink, maybe dancing with him and his coworkers. He never actually invited me to those nights out, which at the time I rationalized as work-related, but in hindsight feels like a huge red flag. I put on a simple black dress, did my makeup, and called an Uber. My heart was pounding the whole ride, and I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't like I was doing anything wrong. I was just going to meet my husband. When I walked into the club, the bass from the speakers hit me in the chest. The place was packed. Dim neon lights, bodies pressed together on the dance floor, bartenders slinging drinks like they were in fast forward. I scanned the room, feeling oddly nervous. And then I saw him. At first, it was just Dylan's profile. He was sitting in a booth with some of his coworkers. But then my stomach dropped. A woman was sitting next to him. Too close. She wasn't just a colleague. The way her hand rested on his thigh, the way he leaned toward her with that smile, the smile that used to be mine, said it all. I froze. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. My brain tried to make excuses. Maybe she was drunk and leaning on him. Maybe it was innocent. But then he put his arm around her shoulders and she tilted her head back, laughing at something he whispered. My knees felt weak. I ducked behind a group of people on the dance floor, trying to hide. I didn't want him to see me, not yet. I wanted to know before confronting him. My heart was racing so hard I thought I'd pass out. I stayed hidden for maybe 10 minutes, just watching. And in those 10 minutes, I watched him kiss her. It wasn't a peck. It was the kind of kiss you give someone you're sleeping with. The kind of kiss that shatters marriages. I don't even remember leaving the club. One second I was there, my world crumbling, and the next I was in an Uber staring blankly out the window while tears streamed down my face. The driver asked if I was okay, and I just nodded, unable to speak. When I got home, I sat in the dark on our couch for hours. My phone buzzed around 2:30 a.m., a text from Dylan, "Heading home now, love." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, but I didn't reply. When he finally walked in around 3 a.m., smelling like whiskey and perfume that wasn't mine, He kissed me on the forehead, like he always did. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I felt nothing but disgust.
The next morning, I woke up before Dylan. I barely slept, maybe 2 hours at most. My eyes were swollen, my head pounding, but my body felt too wired to stay in bed. I lay there, watching him breathe, wondering how many times he had come home like this before. How many times he had kissed me goodnight after kissing her. How many lies had I swallowed without even realizing it? He stirred around 9 a.m., groaning from what was clearly a hangover. "Gah, my head," he muttered, pulling the blanket over his face. I forced a neutral voice. "Rough night?" "Yeah," he said, not even opening his eyes. "We went a little too hard. You know how it gets with the guys." The lie was so casual, it almost made me laugh. Almost. Instead, I just nodded, biting the inside of my cheek to keep from breaking. For the rest of the weekend, I played the role of the oblivious wife. I cooked breakfast. I smiled when he told me about funny things his coworkers did. I even let him hold me on the couch while we watched TV. But inside, I was spiraling. I didn't tell anyone at first. I think part of me hoped I was wrong, that maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's hand on his thigh. I saw his lips on hers. By Monday, I couldn't take it anymore. I confided in my best friend, Marissa. She's the kind of person who doesn't sugarcoat things, and I needed that. "Wait, you actually saw him kissing her?" she asked, eyes wide. "Yes, in the booth. Arm around her, laughing, everything." "Then why are you even questioning it?" she said, shaking her head. "He's cheating. Period." Her bluntness hurt, but she was right. Still, hearing it out loud made me feel like I was drowning. "Maybe it was just a one-time thing?" I whispered. Marissa frowned. "Babe, people don't suddenly start cheating one random night. If he's bold enough to do it in a public club in front of coworkers, then this has been going on." Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. That week, I started paying closer attention. And once I opened my eyes, the signs were everywhere. The late nights, the dead battery excuses when I couldn't reach him, the sudden interest in cologne and new shirts, the way he guarded his phone like it was a ticking bomb. I'd never been the kind of wife who snooped. I believed in trust, but now I felt like a fool. One night while he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. Of course, it was locked. He never used to lock it, but now it had Face ID. I wanted to scream. Instead, I put it back and sat on the bed staring at myself in the mirror across the room. My reflection looked like a stranger. Messy hair, dark circles under my eyes, shoulders slumped under the weight of betrayal. The paranoia consumed me. Every time he left the house, I wondered who he was really with. Every text notification made me suspicious. Every late return felt like another cut to my chest. Finally, I decided to test him. The following Friday, Dylan said he was going out again. "Just a quick drink with the guys," he told me. "Don't wait up." "Actually," I said casually, "I was thinking I'd join. It's been a while since we went out together." The look on his face was all the confirmation I needed. He froze for a second too long before forcing a smile. I don't think you'd have fun. It's really just boring work talk, you know? Maybe I'll come for one drink." I pushed. He laughed, but it sounded strained. "No, seriously, babe, you'd hate it. Next time, okay?" And just like that, he grabbed his jacket and left. I didn't tell him, but I called Marissa the second the door closed. I need you to come with me. We're going to the club. An hour later, we were sitting in her car outside the same place I'd seen him before. My heart was hammering in my chest. Are you sure you want to do this? Marissa asked. I need to know, I said. My voice cracked. I can't live like this. We went inside. The music once again vibrating through my bones. The lights flashed, the air smelled of sweat and alcohol, and my stomach churned with nerves. It didn't take long to spot him. There he was, at the same booth. And there she was too. The same woman. Only this time, they weren't even trying to hide it. Her legs were draped across his lap, his hand resting casually on her thigh. It felt like the world stopped spinning. Marissa grabbed my arm. We need to go before you do something you'll regret. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching as he leaned in and whispered something in her ear, making her laugh. Then they kissed again, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Tears burned in my eyes, but I forced myself to stay quiet. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture. My hands were trembling, but I knew I needed proof. Then I turned and walked out, my legs moving on autopilot. In the parking lot, Marissa hugged me while I sobbed into her shoulder. I don't know what to do, I whispered. Yes, you do, she said softly. You just don't want to admit it yet. I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. By the time I got home, Dylan was still out, and I sat on the couch in the dark, staring at the wall, phone clutched in my hand with the photo I had taken. My body shook from the mixture of rage and despair that kept boiling in my chest. When he finally stumbled in around 2 a.m., he smelled like alcohol and cheap perfume. He kissed me on the forehead before collapsing into bed, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I lay awake the rest of the night, turning over every scenario in my head. Should I scream? Should I leave? Should I pretend it never happened? By morning, I had made up my mind. I couldn't let this fester any longer. Dylan, I said, as he sat at the kitchen counter scrolling on his phone. Yeah? He replied, barely looking up. We need to talk. The words must have carried weight because he immediately set his phone down. What's up? My throat tightened. I wanted to stay calm, but my voice wavered. Who is she? He blinked. Who? The woman at the club, I said flatly. The one you've been kissing, the one you've been touching like she's your girlfriend instead of me. His face drained of color. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then he laughed nervously. Babe, what are you talking about? You must have seen wrong. I don't know what you think you saw, but I have pictures, Dylan. The silence that followed was deafening. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the counter. He picked it up, saw the photo, and all pretense drained from his face. His shoulders slumped. Shit, he muttered under his breath. That's all you have to say? He rubbed his face with both hands. Look, it's not what you think. Oh, don't you dare, I snapped. Don't you dare insult me by trying to spin this. I saw you, twice. Do you know how humiliating that was, watching my husband drape himself over another woman like I didn't even exist? Tears welled in my eyes, but anger kept my voice sharp. He groaned and leaned back in his chair. I screwed up, okay? It just happened. I had a little too much to drink and... Twice? I cut him off. You don't accidentally make out with someone twice, Dylan. He flinched, but I didn't let up. Who is she? I demanded. He hesitated, then mumbled, She's just someone from work. It didn't mean anything. Her name, I pressed. Say her name. He avoided my eyes. Jessica. Jessica. The name echoed in my head like a curse. Are you sleeping with her? My voice was barely a whisper. He shifted uncomfortably. No. Don't lie to me. Silence. Dylan? Finally, he exhaled sharply. It happened once. My stomach dropped. Even though I had prepared myself for the worst, hearing him admit it was like being stabbed. How long? I asked. 2 months, he said, eyes fixed on the floor. 2 months. 8 weeks of deception. 8 weeks of lies. 8 weeks of me wondering why he smelled different, why he came home late, why he seemed distant. I felt physically ill. You looked me in the eye every day and pretended like nothing was happening. You kissed me after kissing her. You slept in my bed after being with her. Do you have any idea what that feels like? He finally looked up at me, guilt written all over his face. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Didn't mean to hurt me? Dylan, every choice you made was another knife in my back. Don't tell me this wasn't intentional. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. Please, he said softly. We can work through this. I'll end it with her, I swear. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. But the image of him with Jessica replayed in my mind like a broken record, and all I could think was, how do you fix something you shattered on purpose? The next few days were a blur. Dylan tried everything, flowers, cooking dinner, apologizing over and over, but his words felt empty, like a script he thought would earn forgiveness. Meanwhile, I was drowning. At work, I could barely focus. At night, I lay awake replaying every interaction we had for the past few months, wondering what had been real and what had been a lie. One evening, Marissa came over. She listened quietly as I spilled everything. The confrontation, his half-confession, his pleas for another chance. So what are you going to do? She asked gently. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe he's sorry, but another part of me thinks he's only sorry because he got caught. Marissa's words hit hard. I realized that Dylan hadn't confessed until I had proof. He hadn't come clean because of guilt. He had been forced to. That night, I slept in the guest room. Dylan begged me to come back to our bed, but I couldn't. Lying beside him felt like lying next to a stranger. The following week, things got worse. I was at the grocery store when I ran into one of Dylan's co-workers, a woman named Carla, who had always been friendly with me. Hey, how are you? She said cheerfully. I tried to smile, but it felt forced. I'm okay, just hanging in there. Carla tilted her head. Rough week? I hesitated, then asked, Did you know about Dylan and Jessica? Her eyes widened. Oh, God, you know? The ground seemed to disappear beneath my feet. So it wasn't a secret. Carla bit her lip. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it was my place to say anything, but yeah, everyone at work knew. They weren't exactly subtle. I felt my face burn with humiliation. Not only had my husband betrayed me, but his entire workplace knew before I did. When I got home, Dylan was sitting on the couch watching TV. I stood in the doorway, staring at him, my chest tight with rage. You made me a fool, I said, my voice trembling. He muted the TV, looking confused. What are you talking about? Carla,
She knew. Everyone knew. You weren't hiding it, Dylan. You were parading it around like our marriage didn't matter. His mouth opened, then closed again. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I can't do this anymore.
I don't think I had ever seen Dylan so nervous. After I told him I couldn't do it anymore, he went into full panic mode. He followed me around the house like a lost dog, constantly asking, "What do you mean? Are you saying you're leaving me? Are you serious?" Yes, I was serious, but the words didn't come easily. 17 years together, 5 of them married, don't just vanish overnight. There were still memories, inside jokes, holidays, quiet Sunday mornings, but all of that was now poisoned by what he had done. For the next few days, I quietly observed him. Every move he made seemed calculated, like he was trying to prove he was a changed man. He deleted Jessica's number in front of me, unfollowed her on social media, even gave me his phone to check whenever I wanted. But instead of feeling reassured, I just felt sick. Because here's the thing. Trust isn't about checking someone's phone. Trust is about never needing to. And Dylan had burned that bridge to ash. One night after he had gone to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, scrolling through Reddit. I ended up on a subreddit for people dealing with infidelity, and I fell down a rabbit hole of stories that mirrored my own. One post stuck out. Cheating isn't just about sex. It's about betrayal, lies, manipulation, and humiliation. Once that trust is shattered, you'll never look at your partner the same way again. You can glue a broken vase back together, but every crack will still be there. I stared at that comment for a long time. That was exactly how I felt. Even if Dylan begged, even if he swore on his life, even if he tattooed my name across his forehead, those cracks would never disappear. The next morning, I reached out to a divorce attorney. It felt surreal, typing out the email. My hands trembled as I hit send. But once it was done, a strange calm washed over me. Like I had taken back a piece of control I didn't even realize I had lost. I didn't tell Dylan right away. Instead, I started quietly gathering information. Bank accounts, passwords, copies of important documents. It was like I was building an escape plan, one folder at a time. Meanwhile, Dylan kept trying harder. One evening, he cooked my favorite dinner, pasta with homemade sauce. He poured me a glass of wine and said, "I know I messed up, but I'm willing to go to therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Please don't give up on us." I looked at him across the table, his eyes desperate, searching. And for a split second, I almost caved. Almost. But then I remembered Carla's face when she told me everyone knew. The humiliation burned all over again. "I don't think I can do this anymore," I said softly. His fork clattered onto the plate. "So that's it? You're just going to throw everything away?" I wanted to scream. Throw everything away? He had been the one who trashed it all the second he put his lips on Jessica. Instead, I simply said, "You threw it away first." That weekend, I went to stay with Marissa. She welcomed me with open arms, no questions asked. When I broke down crying in her guest room, she sat beside me and rubbed my back. "You're stronger than you think," she whispered. I didn't feel strong. I felt broken. But hearing her say it made me believe, just for a moment, that maybe I could be. 2 days later, Dylan showed up at Marissa's house. He knocked until I answered. His eyes were red-shot, his hair a mess. "Please, just come home. We can figure this out." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so Marissa wouldn't hear. "Dylan," I said firmly, "I can't go back to the way things were. I don't trust you. And without trust, there is no marriage."
His hand shook as he reached for me. "But I love you." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. Love isn't just words, it's actions, and your actions told me everything I needed to know." He went quiet. For the first time, I think he realized nothing he said could fix this. That night, lying in Marissa's guest bed, I allowed myself to imagine a future without him. At first, the thought terrified me, but slowly, it started to feel freeing. No more late nights wondering where he was, no more lies, no more humiliation. Just me, starting over. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be honest. And maybe honesty was worth more than the illusion of love.
The official end came on a Tuesday morning. I sat across from Dylan in the sterile conference room of the attorney's office. Papers were spread out on the table between us, thick with legal jargon and signatures. I'd imagined this moment so many times, what it would feel like, whether I'd cry, whether I'd hesitate. Instead, I felt nothing but exhaustion. It wasn't the fiery rage of betrayal anymore. It wasn't even grief. It was just emptiness. Like every tear, every scream, every ounce of anger had already been drained out of me in the weeks leading up to this. Dylan didn't speak much. He barely looked at me. His once confident posture was slouched, defeated. For the first time since I discovered everything, he looked like the one who had lost something irreplaceable. Because he had. When the final papers were signed, I walked out of that office and stepped into the chilly autumn air. The sky was gray, the kind of weather that usually made me feel heavy, but in that moment it felt oddly fitting. Like the world was acknowledging the storm that had just passed. Marissa was waiting for me in her car, a coffee in the cup holder and tissues on the passenger seat. She didn't say anything when I got in. She just squeezed my hand. That simple gesture meant more than any words. The weeks that followed were strange. I moved back into my own apartment, a tiny place I had rented years before meeting Dylan, the lease still technically mine. The first night I slept there, the silence was deafening. No sound of his footsteps, no clinking of his late-night whiskey glass, no hum of his phone buzzing at odd hours. It was lonely, but it was also peaceful. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for the next lie. Of course, there were moments of weakness, nights where I stared at old photos of us smiling on vacations, wrapped in each other's arms, and thought, was any of it real? I even caught myself drafting a message to him once, fingers hovering over the keyboard, wanting to ask how he was doing. But then I remembered Jessica. I remembered the lipstick stains on his collar, the way he had laughed at her jokes while ignoring me, the way he had lied with such ease. And I deleted the message. One evening, I got a call from Carla, the coworker who had first told me everyone knew. "I just wanted to check in," she said. "I know this can't be easy." We ended up talking for hours. She confessed that the office had been buzzing with rumors about Dylan for months, and that many people were relieved I finally left him. At first, I felt humiliated all over again, but then, strangely, I felt a flicker of strength. Because while Dylan had been busy destroying our marriage in secret, I had finally stopped being the only one living in the dark. A few months passed, and little by little I started to reclaim myself. I joined a yoga class, I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my relationship. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Each day wasn't perfect. There were setbacks, tears, moments of regret. But there was also growth. And growth felt better than betrayal ever could. One night, Marissa and I went out to a bar downtown. It wasn't a club. The thought of going into one of those still made my stomach twist, but it was lively enough to feel like a fresh start. As we sipped cocktails and laughed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the bar mirror. For the first time in a long while, I saw a woman who wasn't defined by someone else's choices. I saw me. Dylan tried to contact me a few times after the divorce, a text here, an email there, always the same themes: regret, longing, promises that he had changed. But the last message he sent sealed it for me. He wrote, "I made the worst mistake of my life. I traded forever for one night, and now I'll never forgive myself." For a second, I almost pitied him. But then I remembered the countless nights I sat alone wondering where he was, the humiliation of being the last person to know, the way my trust had been shattered piece by piece, lie by lie, and all I felt was relief that he was no longer my problem. Reddit taught me something during those sleepless nights when I was scrolling, desperate for answers. Over and over again, I read the same advice from strangers across the world. Leave the cheater. Save yourself. And they were right. I saved myself. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. It wasn't painless. But walking away from Dylan was the first step towards finding a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. The version that deserved respect, honesty, and real love. So here I am, months later, sharing my story with the internet in the same way countless others shared theirs with me. If you're reading this and you've been betrayed, if you're lying awake wondering if you should stay or go, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me sooner. You are not crazy. You are not weak. And you don't deserve to settle for scraps of loyalty. Walk away. Because sometimes the scariest endings are just disguised beginnings.